I suppose that comes back to really clarity of communication and leadership, right?
It does. It does. The key thing there is I'm always a bit careful about calling out a politician because,
yeah, of course,
and the reason I'm careful about that is it's solely because I know in any leadership position I've got, no one really has my perspective on that day. So I don't know what they've got on their desk at any one point in time. And I know at the moment that there is a balance trying to be struck between bringing Australians home, those people who want to come back home and get them back safely, and then opening the borders more generally.
Yeah.
But I think a key thing here is that this is one of Australia's biggest success stories in terms of exports, both young age education for internationals and also tertiary and ongoing education for international students and international markets. And this isn't an either or with Australia. I think Australia, the education of an Australian student is broadened and diversified by the diversity of the population they are taught with. Yeah. And I think that's what we see as a key benefit. Not only does it provide us with access to the skills we need as a country, but it also creates that empathy and understanding of different cultures, different perspectives. And that's what you need, I think, to be a global leader. I think you need it as a country to be a global leader. I think if you're an employer, that's what you need to have a global insight. You need to be exposed to the cultures and behaviors of different types of country and culture and hopefully benefit from them.
Yeah, I think the richness of diversity makes us all better. Yeah. So what's your view around countries, businesses, individuals that you've looked to in the last year or so and thought, you know, they've done it really well? Can you talk to us a bit around some of the inspirational things you find?
So I think if we have a look, firstly, I'll just say upfront, anyone who's been in any company, organization, university, and has really faced up to just how difficult it's been and tried to find a way through it. I take my hat off to everyone who's done that. I know how hard that's been within the tertiary education sector, and I'm sure it's been incredibly hard in lots of different areas. Think just some examples of where if you think just in Australia, and Melbourne is known for its arts and its culture and its food and its coffee and all of these things which we've taken for granted as being part of our day-to-day life, and just how people have inverted their business models. So the way in which they've gone from being in venue spaces to virtual spaces, or so you've seen the movement of arts and culture online. You've seen rapidly ways in which they've tried to help people to be able to earn a living by moving to online rather than just in a face-to-face environment. There are restaurants and places that people will have experienced in their home that they would never have got access to. Yeah. There are meals and menus and things that people have tested and tried. But the thing that's obvious is that agility is not available to everyone. For some people, they are highly capital intensive, they're highly resource intensive. So the ability to just flick a switch and be able to do something different is a challenge. But if we think about in Australia and in Victoria, we've seen advanced manufacturing firms working with universities, working with clinicians on new models of PPE. So instead of accepting that PPE and health PPE shortages, they've actually changed what they run their machines and tools with in order to create new models of PPE. We've got an Institute of Medical Engineering that works across multiple faculties, and one of the things that they were looking at very early was how can they work with companies in Victoria on expanding the availability of ventilators, and how do they, and not just new ventilators, but how do we adapt ventilators we've already got so they can support more than one patient in that space. So I think it's been genuinely a really interesting time for people. The hard challenge, though, is when you're dealing with the day-to-day of a crisis, how do you carve out the time to think about alternatives when you might be seeing the money falling out the bottom, and yet what the only solution to that is either to cut or to earn and bring things back. And but we've got plenty of examples of organizations and sectors that have managed to do that.
And what are some of the techniques personally that you've introduced to enable you to do that when you're looking at, to balance that scenario you've just described?
I think to acknowledge that there's only a finite amount of time in the week, and you can either be run by events or you can structure that time. So it's very easy during a crisis to say, I've just got to deal with everything that comes in. I've got to look at my emails every minute of the day, and I've got to be in response mode. In a leadership position, the organization needs more than that. It needs you to be in recovery mode as well as in response mode. So the way I've done it personally is I've structured my time in such a way, and some weeks it doesn't work. Some weeks the requirements of what's required day to day take it all over. But I've actively looked back at the end of every week, and I've asked myself the question, how much time am I dealing with today? And how much time am I dealing with what we need next for the next stage of what's happening in? And we've been encouraged as leaders within Monash to do that, to think very proactively about the next stage of what we're doing, as well as the live crisis that's being managed in the situation. And if you don't do that actively, you will be run by today. There's no question. And I was told some years ago to look at my diary through 3 horizons.
Yeah.
So horizon 1 being what I do today and what I might need to do today. Yeah. Horizon 2 is the opportunity I might be able to do as a result of being better organized today. Horizon 3 are the developments I might get to if I sort my other stuff out. And what I've tried to do in the different jobs is periodically just look at my time and ask myself, how much horizon 3 time am I really getting? And if I'm not getting that horizon 3 time, it's on me to organize myself better to make that possible, because that's what the organization wants me to do. It wants me to manage the day-to-day, but it also wants me to be part of that collaborative leadership that plots a future. But it doesn't happen by accident. You have to design it into the way you work.
That's fantastic gold for all leaders, tuning in today. So let's just recap that. So it's horizon 1, horizon 2, and horizon 3. Can you just go over those again? Because that was, that's taking the to-do list to the next level.
So horizon 1 for me is very much, I don't actively have to think about it. This is all coming to me. So it's coming on the phone, it's coming on emails, it's the meetings I already know about.
Reactive.
Yeah, so that's react mode, response mode, etc. Horizon 2 is, what am I able to start to develop as a result of what we're already doing? So where can I go next? Where's the opportunity? Who do I need to talk to? And which connections do I need to make? And which priorities do I need to follow? Horizon 3 is what I would say is the market making space. It's, how do I take a step back and see what's actually happening? Where are the gaps that aren't being addressed? Where are the challenges that haven't been faced up to? And I was told relatively early on that if you're in a broad leadership role, you're probably going to spend something like 50–60% of your time in 1, something like 20–25% of your time in 2, and 15% of your time, or 15–20% of your time in 3. But if you actually ask people to look at their diaries for last week, they would probably find what I found when I did that, which was I was spending something like 90–95% of the time responding to events. And in leadership roles, I think we need to do more than that.
Absolutely. A couple of final questions, because we're nearly out of time. How are you feeling about the next 12 months? And what advice would you give for those of us who might be feeling a bit overwhelmed or lost, or maybe a bit of a COVID hangover, as I like to call it?
So I'm an optimist by nature, and that's what I have. I was reflecting in preparing for today's conversation. I was thinking about adversity and times I've faced personal adversity, but there's always someone around me who's got a worse challenge than I've got. There's someone who's got a bigger, this chap David has mentioned in Uganda, he will out-trump me every day on the challenges he faces. Things I take for granted every day, he doesn't have access to. So I've got that perspective. I'm really optimistic about the future. That's one good thing about working in education and in research, because research is about solving issues for the future, and education is also about nurturing the next generation. And I can tell you, you're having a bad day, just go and have a walk around the university campus and think what happens in there, because you'll see really inspiring ways to teach people and to encourage them to develop new ideas. But I do think that we have to, and I know there's some tension in this in the press at the moment. For some people, this is still a crisis. There are some businesses which we know that there are going to be changes to some of the economic support, and that's going to have a material effect on them. So for those who can move on and move forward, then I think we need to help and encourage them to do that. But we also need to look back over our shoulder and remember that there are still going to be people either in business or in society who are still facing challenges. So I am optimistic, as long as we focus on those that can do well, can actually move forward, do move forward, but they look back behind them to make sure that we are putting in the appropriate support and encouragement for others. And in terms of the COVID hangover, there's a book I read which is called Breathe, and it's, I can't remember the author. I knew I'd forget it and I forgot to write it down. But basically, it talks about the fact that we've lost the ability and the focus on breathing, and particularly deep breathing, and the way in which just taking some time out to stop and pause and reflect and breathe. Not only does it help your physiological system, and your mental health in terms of the way your body operates, it also encourages you to stop and look. So whenever I'm having a hugely stressful moment, I just remember there's always someone who's more stressed than I am. And instead of me only focusing on my own stress, I should also focus on how do I make them less stressful? Is there anything I can do to do that? And if you just take your stress and stretch it out a bit, with some breathing and some pausing, the immediacy of it and the overwhelming nature of it can change. And one thing that leaders really need to be careful of is leadership can be really lonely at times, and particularly when you're trying to give confidence to your team, but you know that the situation ahead is challenging. There are lots of leaders out there who are feeling equally lonely, and we can make ourselves less lonely by reaching out through events like this and contacting each other and connecting with each other. But self-investment and self-care is massively important, I think.
100%. And we're out of time, and it's amazing to speak with you as always, Ken. And for taking the time to connect with the community. Ladies and gentlemen, Ken Sloan.